Hello, my name is Guy Caron. I'm a former member of parliament for Rimouski, Egypt, Témiscouata Basque for the NDP, former finance critic for the party, and also former parliamentary leader. I'm also known for my positions on basic income, which I put forth during the leadership race of the NDP back in 2017. In fact, basic income was a cornerstone of my program, which was something of an oddity for the left, which was not used to discuss those issues. But with the pandemic and the federal response to the pandemic, especially on the economic side with the CERB and the CESB and all those measures to stimulate and maintain the economy, well, people are talking about basic income now. So I initially was opposed in my first years as an MP to the idea of basic income, because to me that meant universal basic income in the sense of citizenship dividend. And that means that you're cutting a check to everyone and you hope to recoup some money through taxes, through maybe the scrapping of social programs. And when I was starting to think of other ways to do basic income, such as trying to basically provide the help as a complement to the social services to ensure that no one will be under poverty, the idea became much more attractive. So this is why I strongly believe that on the progressive side, basic income is an idea that we should grasp and we should work with, not necessarily at the exclusion of everything else, but as a complement to what we have built as Canadians in terms of social safety nets. And on progressive side, you're hearing more and more of a few ideas. Of course, there is the idea of basic income. And then we can talk about universal basic income, guaranteed minimum income, negative income tax, and so on. And the idea of basic income is to provide basically the financial means for people who are poor, because poverty obviously can be defined as a lack of financial means. For some on the left, though, it's seen as a commodification of social services. So there is some concern on basic income for that reason. Then we hear about job guarantee, which basically is what it says, which is that the federal government is guaranteeing that you will get a job if you want one and can find one. The advantage of this is obviously that it helps reduce or eliminate the downward pressure on wages that is caused by a large pool of unemployed workers. But it's usually seen as a complement to modern monetary theory, which would require a massive government reform in terms of taxes and the way it does its finances. And there are obviously union concerns with the status of those people. The third element is universal basic services. Armenia Elysium, who's an economist I deeply love, is actually promoting this idea, which is instead of giving money to people, let's provide them with public services. Let's ensure that those public services or those services are removed from the market. The problem with this is obviously that most social services, most social programs are provincial in nature. So if you really want to deal with the whole of universal basic services, you need to start provincial federal discussions, which are never easy. In my sense, all these ideas are complementary, but basic income, what attracts me to it is the fact that of the three, it's likely the most the easiest one to implement. So progressives should like basic income because it eliminates poverty, because it eliminates stigmatization, it increases social democratic participation. If you don't need to worry about surviving, which is what so many Canadians are doing right now, then you have more time to think about your participation in your community, in your municipality, in politics in general. And this is something that's often overlooked as a consequence or as an advantage of basic income, but it's really important. Obviously, it removes or it reduces economic inequalities, and in terms of gender equity, it also provides greater gender equity, especially in households where, by and large, obviously, women are gaining less income than men for the same type of work. We're still talking about 72, 75 cents per dollar earned by men. It provides greater flexibility for women also who want to, for example, leave an abusive household and they can't do it because of the fear of getting to poverty. So basic income provides a solution for many of the problems. There are some principles that should be guiding on the leftward perspective basic income. It cannot replace social programs, that's obvious. It cannot be seen as a panacea that will solve all problems. It's really a tool that is complementing other tools that we have right now or that we could be providing ourselves. And there are those 6 principles here that have been developed by Campaign 2000, which provides really a path for the left to implement and work towards basic income. What we should be doing, and the question that we have now, the reason why I prefer to have a guaranteed minimum income rather than universal basic income is basically that it's less costly. It doesn't really attract all the negative comments that you could get on universal basic income, such as the cost of it, such as the fact that it will be given to anyone regardless of their level of income. If you are starting from messaging that we're going to give a check to everyone, well, you have a problem because you need to ensure that Canadians agree with that goal, agree with that objective. And it's not that easy, especially with conservatives who will be raising the issue of taxes. Conservatives will be raising the issue of the disincentive to work and so on and so on. If you're looking at a different messaging, which is basic income should aim at eliminating poverty. It doesn't make sense that in this country we still have people, households who are poor, despite the social safety nets that we have given ourselves. And if you're saying a basic income will supplement what we have right now and will be designed to eliminate poverty, you have a goal, you have a messaging that people can get behind, especially seeing that there's been confirmation of this by the federal government through the pandemic crisis. And basically, the federal government confirmed that basic income to live decently is at around $2,000, which is the amount that has been given under the CERB program. So we should be using this window of opportunity to work towards basic income. And first of all, we need to study the impact of CERB of the CSSB, which is the student component to it. How the provinces responded to it. Is it really a disincentive to work? We need to ensure that we can get as much information from the current experiment as we can. And then if we want to use that window of opportunity, the federal government should actually announce that they will be going and moving towards a federal basic income on the same lines as the CSSB or the CERB or the CSSB. And that announcement should be made so that we are going to have that debate and that preparation of the public. It is needed as an economic stimulus. We know that we'll have a problem for the next 2 or 3 years for economic development. It will take a long while. We'll likely go through a deep recession or even maybe a depression, who knows. So we should be using the framework that we have created to implement a basic income. It should not be a pilot. I think we are at the point where we need to have an implementation as a whole of basic income, but let's do it for a period of 5 years. A period of 5 years that will be a default mode. We shouldn't be expecting the program will be dismantled after 5 years. We should just say the program will continue, but eventually we'll need to analyze and see how we can improve it. But that will be done once the program is implemented. The criteria for success that will have to be used is as provided an economic boost for communities or for individuals through the reduction of the poverty gap. Will it actually increase wages at the lower end of the scale? Because obviously if you have basic income at the point where you're no longer poor and need to survive, well, the wages at the low end scale of work, of labor, will have to be more attractive to get you to work. So there will be, in my sense, an increase in the low wages. There will be also, we need to demonstrate that there's no significant disincentive for work, and that there is, and that's especially attractive for provinces, a positive impact on health and also on crime. Those are usually elements that are costly for provinces to manage, healthcare, of course, and administration of justice, enforcement, and so on. And if we are able to lower those costs, it will make it attractive for provinces. You initially have to deal with provinces, not to negotiate new programs from them, but to ensure that they will not be using that federal basic income to lower the level of their own services, that they won't be using it saying, well, we don't need social assistance anymore because we have basic income. We need also to ensure that the provinces will reduce the risk that basic income will be used to increase some cost, the cost of some goods and utilities. For example, the cost of rent. If everybody gets the money to ensure that they're no longer poor, there's an incentive maybe to increase the level of rent. So we need to ensure that the provinces will put in place a form of rent control that would avoid the worst of what might be happening. But otherwise, there's no requirement for the provinces to actually improve anything. They just need to ensure that that they will have the same level of services. And then after that 5-year experiment, then you can actually go back to the table with the provinces, evaluate how it went, evaluate the cost that they were able to save, and maybe at that point looking at more at the integration of other services, not to replace them, but to complement them in some aspects. So it's a massive program, but once again, if we're talking about reforming the way that we are seeing our social safety net, and after acknowledging through the current crisis that the social safety nets have gaping holes that needs to be addressed, and they will not necessarily be addressed by the provinces at this point, because the provinces will be in financial trouble, like municipalities will be. At the federal level, there is a place where they can actually ensure a significant game changer in terms of our society, in terms of how Canadians perceive the role of their governments. And basic income is a possibility for the federal government, which has demonstrated it can go in that direction with the implementation of those emergency programs that are helping Canadians to get through COVID. So we should resist austerity calls that we hear. On the other hand, we should not only fight austerity, but promote a new way of seeing a massive poverty reduction and economic inequality reduction program, and basic income. So this is in a nutshell. I can probably make presentations of 1 or 2 hours on it, but we have the window of opportunity that we need to use, and this is the point that the NDP and other like-minded parties in Parliament should be fighting for. Thank you.